bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The queen will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
So they told me that the sun would come up Tuesday morning, and it did. Even though I gave it the double finger.
Yeah, I see you.
Hey,
No 69 jersey tonight, buddy.
Yeah.
First time this year.
well, listen. We are Bears fans. We suffered through the double doink. You'll live. You'll live.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
So Ed, give us your raw feelings. I know everybody's kind of like, we're waiting for you to say something. What's your raw feeling on it? Just be raw with it. Let it go.
Share
just
with
be
us.
raw with it, huh?
Having Daddy
share-
Ed's rant. Have a
Eddie-
rant and just
Eddie,
be out
just-
and be raw with it. Let the viewers see it.
Eddie, let us know how you feel, buddy.
When you've been a Vikings fan for 52 years, you realize that back in the 1970s, you never had it so good. Because even though they lost the Super Bowl 3 times in the 70s, at least they got there. And in the playoffs, they were nails, man. They took care of business. But like I said earlier this season, the Vikings are going to be the Vikings, and they'll always be the Vikings until they're able to change the narrative. And it's the same old, same old. They reel you in, they reel you in. And just when you're thinking that things are going to be different, they tear your heart out. And they do it in Viking style because they don't just lose. They look embarrassing. And it just, I spent the whole season frustrated because, the media, the daily talk shows, name the show. None of them mentioned the Vikings. Their top 3 lists, their top 4 lists. It was always somebody else. And you start getting kind of pissed off because you're thinking, well, what about the Vikings? I don't ever hear anything about the Vikings. Well, as long as they continue to do what they did, not only this last Monday, but then the week before against Detroit, as long as they keep doing that, they're never going to be taken seriously as a franchise because they had a 14-3 regular season, a fantastic season, and it'll never get talked about now because of the embarrassing losses that they had 2 weeks in a row. I mean,
And what did those 60s and 70s Viking teams, what did they have in common?
they had in common that they played outdoors, they were tough, they weren't finesse, they
gave up. They
could
gave up
get
their
the Rams
advantage.
and Dallas and all those teams outside in January, and they'd come to Minnesota because Minnesota was good enough, and they always had a good enough record that they had home field. Those teams come into Bloomington,
Yep.
and they could never win because of the toughness that the Vikings had. The minute they built that dome in '85, the Vikings were over as we knew it because they've never been able to recapture the toughness that an NFL team needs. Your Philadelphias, your Baltimores, your Buffaloes, the Kansas Cities, all the teams that play outdoors in the elements and get that level of toughness, dome teams just aren't able to, they're just not able to ever achieve that, at least in my mind anyway. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're totally right. It's a just like Tampa and Miami have a weather advantage. So when the season starts, it's ungodly and teams go down there and crumble. And in the wintertime in January, if you've got to come from practicing in the frigid cold of Buffalo or Chicago and then you go down there and you're in 85-degree heat with 85% humidity in January, you're like, what the hell? I mean, we all remember that San Diego Charger Miami game when, they had to carry Kellen Winslow off the field at the end of the game because he was damn near dead from heat exhaustion. I mean, you give up. That's what sickens me about the Bears. The team president is hell bent on building a dome, and we suck enough. Now you're going to give away the one advantage we have.
If Matt Stafford and Nakua and if they have to come to Minnesota and play outside when it's 10 degrees,
Yep.
is Stafford filling the air with balls? And
Nope.
I mean, it's a totally different. You force a team to play totally different. It doesn't matter what their strengths are. They have to play a certain way to win in the elements. And when the Vikings never. I don't know. I'm done talking about it. It just.
Okay.
But is it just me? Or did we already have the Super Bowl?
We did?
Well, but Monday night before the game, they got somebody singing, behind a piano at midfield, and they got former players coming out talking about how much they love Los Angeles and getting the crowd all wound up. And I'm like, the NFL made a spectacle of Monday night's game that was everything LA. And it's like, did they do the same thing for the North Carolina?
No.
When North Carolina went through a hurricane and you still have people literally living in tents?
Tennessee.
I didn't see any games where the NFL made a spectacle of games that were in Jacksonville or games that were in Tampa or games that were in Carolina.
Tennessee.
Doing any kind of fundraiser or any kind of promotion of the victims in North Carolina, did you?
Nope.
So what is it about the big
No.
market of LA that all of a sudden they had to bring on Snoop Dogg and all the, and make such a big spectacle out of it?
The NFL loves LA. The problem is LA doesn't love the NFL. They have enough things going on. They don't care. That's why teams move in and out of there. There shouldn't be 2 teams there now. There probably shouldn't even be 1 there now. We'll see if San Diego might finally put a deal together and build a stadium and bring the Chargers back. That would be nice.
And what they also don't tell you is they wanted to talk about, the community of LA needed to get away, and they really stepped up and bought the tickets, and the game was sold out within 2 hours after the tickets went on sale. What they didn't tell you was that over half those tickets that were sold were Viking fans.
Yeah, there was I knew there were some people that I went to high school with that live in the Phoenix area, and they're Viking fans, and they had all gotten tickets and were going to the games, and so I know there were a lot of former Midwest people that now live in Arizona that were going to that game because they're Viking fans.
Well, all I can say is I'm sure the NFL just forgot about North Carolina. I'm sure that now that they've thought about it, I'm sure one of these playoff games we're going to see some kind of a big benefit for the victims and survivors of the North Carolina hurricane, and there's going to be all kind of stars out there, whatever. They're going to come on and do an intro, and they're going to have stars sing different songs and everything, and raise all kind of money for North Carolina. I'm sure that's coming right around the corner. So
what's sad about that is I don't remember which game it was, but it was like the former lead singer for Cheap Trick or something came on and sang the national anthem. That was horrible. Oh, I was like, get this old man out of there. I appreciate the effort, buddy, but that is terrible. What, did nobody proof hear this before we signed up to do this? It was terrible. It was so bad.
So it's a good thing that we all had a conversation before Eric decided to actually join the show, because, of course, Iowa State was playing basketball, so heaven forbid.
Top 10 matchup, baby.
Who cares about basketball?
Number 2,
football show.
Iowa State Cyclones.
This being
took down the number 9.
Football show.
Well, I know.
Football show.
But listen,
that's
on this show,
basketball. It's not soft ass basketball.
Chad is a Nebraska fan. Brett is an Alabama fan, and Ed is an Iowa Hawkeye fan. However, the only person on this show that can say they're an actual alumni of their school is me right here, baby.
Okay.
Number
right.
2
So as an official
takes down
alumni,
number 9.
I'm sure that you've already siphoned thousands of dollars to their NIL, right?
Well, no, I'm not an engineer or a doctor or anything, so.
I always find it interesting when graduates of universities they
Just say it.
take this greater than thou art attitude about being a fan. They're much better fans than everybody else. It's like, wow, talk about your elitist crap. Oh my goodness.
So
I had no
let's get
idea
to
he
it.
was an elitist.
If you're a fan of your team, you live and die with your team. That's how most of us are. I mean, fan is short for fanatic. I'll keep quiet on my opinion on North Carolina, but in L.A., they care about 2 things, fellas. And I'm a lifelong Lakers fan. They care about the Lakers and they care about the Dodgers. And unfortunately, they are not good football fans out there. That's why half of SoFi Stadium has visiting fans in it every time they have a home game. And that's for the Chargers and for the Rams. And that's not being hateful. That's just being 100%.
But I can tell you, Brett, that in D.C., and this will open our segment for you. I'll let you take off with the UFL update. The only thing that D.C. probably cares about is this right here.
He's back. Supposedly, I think James Larson said a couple days ago or reported that he was taken off the roster on Fox Sports, or he went down a list I need to post, and I'll probably post it tonight when we get done on the show. Jordan Tiamu was one of the guys that was taken off the list, and then what was it yesterday? He re-signs with the team, which is great news for the league and great news for DC. Of course, he was originally, how he got into spring ball, was one of the quarterbacks for the St. Louis Battlehawks in XFL 2020. Other than that, there's a lot of openings on each team's roster right now. Houston just released a lot of players. Memphis has got a ton to sign. Birmingham still got some open spots. There's really no other news that has that I'm hearing right now. Shared a couple of articles. Front Porch Sports, I believe, had shared something about expansion, and basically the league needs to be careful and not expand too many cities too fast. But it was a good thing that they were in a good position to continue to grow, which I noticed on all their social media platforms. They've had a pretty good boost here recently. There's a lot of new fans that wasn't even following the USFL or XFL, didn't watch UFL season 1, that is now questioning when it starts, what all teams are involved. I've seen a good little growth on Instagram, Facebook, and X here recently. So a lot of their TV commercials that they continue to post during the playoff games seem to be working, along with it. They've added a lot of social media posts this season compared to last season. And we're still, 80-something days away to kickoff.
So with that said, I'll agree. UFL news is kind of in limbo right now. I know I saw on the St. Louis Battlehawks, they released their drops from the roster, and there was some players on there that I hate to see, but I'm not going to put much stock into it because I think some of them they'll probably eventually be signed, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and move on over to the college football playoffs with the big game coming up this coming Monday between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. What do you think, Eric? What's your initial thoughts on this game?
I think this is going to be a tougher game than maybe we talked about before. Ohio State, I believed, was going to be the national champion. I believed that Ohio State was going to run away with this. I don't know. I think Notre Dame is good up front. I think Notre Dame is going to force Ohio State to have to run the ball more. I think Notre Dame is going to play man, and that may cause some frustration for Ohio State. So I'm not as convinced that Ohio State's the winner in this game. What do you think, Brett?
They were one of the big favorites earlier in the season, but what I saw on and off the field after the Michigan game, really, I made my mind up then when first half against Tennessee. I said, this is the Ohio State that everybody had been expecting all season long. And I said then that I thought Ohio State was going to win a national championship, and I didn't know if anybody would really be able to touch them. I'm hoping for a really good game, and I think Notre Dame's a fantastic story. They're a good story for their fans, good story for, these are two of the biggest brands by far in college football. The ratings will probably be through the roof. I think Notre Dame can hang in there with Ohio State. I think to win the game, to actually come out with a W and a trophy, they're going to need a couple breaks in this game, couple big turnovers. If the turnovers are even, I don't know if Notre Dame's got enough in the skill positions to hang with Ohio State and beat them. I think they'll need to win the turnover battle by at least 2 turnovers, in my opinion. And again, that means nothing. It's just Ohio State's they are loaded. They are loaded. That being said, Notre Dame's got a great secondary. Notre Dame's going to have to win the line of scrimmage, like you mentioned, Eric, on both sides of the ball. Both sides of the ball. And Notre Dame cannot afford to blitz very much and leave their guys out on an island with all the weapons that Ohio State has.
So do you think that, as I mentioned before, do you think Notre Dame's going to be able to play a man across the board? Because if you look at, the Oregon game, you look at the Michigan game, what did they do defensively? They doubled Smith on the outside. Does Notre Dame have the dogs to go man-to-man, maybe only rushing 4, maybe bringing 5, but do they have the dogs to play like Notre Dame wants to play?
Can Notre Dame beat Ohio State? Absolutely. Going head up, it's going to take some creativity, in my opinion, on Notre Dame's part, coaching-wise, to beat Ohio State. And I think they're going to need to shrink the clock. I think they're going to need to try to play power ball, control the possession, do a lot of what Alabama did years ago with Nick Saban, is just kind of just play keep away if possible. They can't go 3 or 4 for 13 on third downs and win this game. They're going to need 60, 70% conversion rate, keep the ball away from Ohio State, and shrink that clock and lessen the possessions to win this game. They don't want to get in a track meet with Ohio State. They do not. That will not end well.
So, Chad, I think that maybe one of Notre Dame's biggest weaknesses, and that's debatable, is I think Ohio State throws the ball better than Notre Dame. If Ohio State can stop the run, can Leonard keep Notre Dame in the game with his arm?
You got to, for that to happen, you really only need to guard against the tight end and Faison in the back, and Love out of the backfield. Whereas Ohio State has like 3 or 4 wide receivers,
Right.
2 running backs. I mean, so as Brett said, can Notre Dame beat them? Yes, they can. How likely is that? I don't know. I don't think it's terribly likely, but I think if Notre Dame wants to win, they have to do what is the secret of beating any team who could pass, like crazy. You got to hit that quarterback early, and you have to hit him often. You have to make him comfortable from the first snap until the last snap. Otherwise, you don't have a chance. If Notre Dame can get pressure up the middle and punch him in the mouth and make him uncomfortable, then they got a chance. If they can't do that, no chance. No chance.
So, Ed, what is the odds that we see the Ohio State of the Michigan game and the Ohio State of the Tennessee game?
I think that Notre Dame is going to attempt to make it a game like the Michigan-Ohio State game was. I think that Notre Dame's going to try and slow the game down and try and grind out a low-scoring win. Counterpoint to that is I think Ohio State's going to go into this game with guns a-blazing, and they're going to try and steamroll them in the first half and put the game out of reach by halftime, because I think the longer they let Notre Dame hang around, the more confidence, the more Notre Dame will will grind out that game like Michigan did and make it a potential win. But I don't know. I'm still erring on the side that Ohio State is going to start fast, score often, and they may not have it locked by halftime, but they're going to make it pretty difficult, I think, by half for Notre Dame to have any realistic chance to come back.
So I think the biggest key to this game for Notre Dame is their defense. Can they do the things that Notre Dame wants to do? Can they play man across the board? It's going to be tough, but that's what Notre Dame likes to do. And the key on Ohio State, I think, is what you mentioned, Ed. If Notre Dame can keep Ohio State from getting out to that fast start, if they can keep it close, I give Notre Dame just as good a chance as anybody to win. But if Ohio State comes out, they get up and down the field, I just do not think Notre Dame has the offense to get into a track meet with Ohio State. I just don't. I'm not saying they can't. I just don't believe they have the offense to get into a track meet with Ohio State. At least they have not proven that to me. So, I mean, I guess if you're a fan of Notre Dame, you're sitting there going, they can. From the outside looking in with no dog in the fight, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't think Notre Dame wants us to turn into a track meet. So I think the biggest key is their defense. And I think for Ohio State, they want to turn it into a track meet. So for me, their biggest key is what type of start can their offense get to? Do you think that's accurate?
It's a low-scoring game. Notre Dame's got a really good shot, but
I think it has to be for Notre Dame to win.
Yeah. And look, I would not be shocked if Notre Dame won this game. It would be an upset. The spread's a shade over a touchdown. People just don't, if they haven't been watching the teams and watching, preseason and keeping up with everything, Notre Dame's a hell of a gritty bunch, very resilient, well-coached, fundamentally sound. But on the other side, Ohio State is just so damn loaded. They are just so loaded at so many positions. Tad is correct. You're going to have him, Howard, throwing off his back foot. If he's got clean pockets, it's going to be a long night for Notre Dame. I'm thinking of a score in my head right now. I think Notre Dame will hang in there. I don't think Notre Dame will get like they did their last national championship game in Miami in 2012, 2013. I think Notre Dame, this is a different Notre Dame team. I worry, too, a couple of injuries they've got on their offensive line. With Sawyer and I'm not even going to butcher his name, the other kid on the other end. Ohio State's got a pretty formidable pass rush as well.
Well, I think if Notre Dame is going to win, you were talking about score. If Notre Dame's going to win, I think it's a 21-17 game.
Yeah, I was thinking the score I had in my head was 24-20. If Ohio State won, it might need to be, just, like you said, 20-23 max for Notre Dame to win, in my opinion.
If I had to call a score, if somebody said, okay, what's the score if Notre Dame wins? I'm thinking 20-21-17. Then I think Notre Dame has a real shot. If Ohio State wins this game, I think it's more like a 31-17.
Yeah.
And
that's my feeling.
And it's so easy. It seems like now when they do the opening coin toss, the team that wins the toss always defers. If Ohio State wins the toss,
take the ball.
I can almost see Ohio State taking the ball to try and get a big lead or get going
to wrestle momentum.
Just see if Notre Dame can hold their own to begin with.
So when I think about Notre Dame's defense and how important it is for them if they're going to play man, you talked about a clean pocket, Brett. What if they put enough man-to-man pressure, whether it be a clean pocket or not? Does that force Will Howard to does that put a little more pressure for him to be a little more perfect on his passes, Does it shrink the windows up that he has to deliver that ball? And does that maybe potentially give Notre Dame the opportunity that they're looking for defensively if he can't put the football into some of those tighter windows, if Notre Dame is able to create pressure with their man-to-man?
Notre Dame, I want to say statistically, maybe before their last game with Penn State, was third or fifth in pass defense. And, Penn State never completed a pass to their wide receivers in that game. Of course, they lean heavy on that future Pro Bowler first-round draft pick, the big tight end. I just, if it were me and I was calling, and I'm a defensive guy, defensive side of the ball, I feel like Notre Dame needs to come up with some creative blitzes in this game. Not necessarily a Bears 46 put 10 on the line and some dropping some, but confusing Ohio State the first drive or two, I think, would go a long way. If Notre Dame shows them a couple things that they have not seen on film yet from Notre Dame this year, this would be the time to do it.
Jay, I can't argue necessarily with you. Jay says playing man against those receivers is suicide, but that's kind of who Notre Dame is. I mean,
that freshman is so good, and he's so tall, and he's, one-handed catches. He looks like a senior or a first year in the NFL. He don't look like no 18-year-old kid. I think he got to double him. Veteran. Yeah.
Well, so Chad, does Notre Dame have the stones to say this is who we were all year long, and then the national championship game, we're coming out in a cover two, or we're bracketing Smith. We're doing. That's really not who they are. Do they do that?
You've got to. If you don't do what you've been doing, or a version thereof, they could mix in some things like Brett's talking about, some special blitzes and stuff. If you try and change who you are in a week and a half and try and install a whole new defense against these guys, good luck.
Yeah,
that's. You know, these kids get what, 20 hours a week to practice,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if they're fully committed, and I've seen some teams that were just, they were not going to lose, to where they watched so much film, they were so prepared that certain looks teams gave them, they knew instantly before the ball was snapped what the other team was running. It takes that kind of commitment.
Yeah, that's why I was talking about. If they're going to try and run man across the board, that's why I said they've got to get to the quarterback early and often, and they've got to knock him down. They've got to hit him. They've got to be in his face.
Pressure.
They've got to sack him. They have got to put the heat on.
Yeah.
And if they don't do that, then you can only cover for so long. And if you're playing against elite guys like that, the time just gets shorter.
But I think pressure to force Howard to maybe not be able to hit those smaller windows because of the man coverage, I think that's Notre Dame's key to victory. If they just rush 4 and Howard has time, they're in trouble.
Well, the other thing is, how much have the Ohio State receivers played against man this year?
Smith probably not a lot, because he's used to being double teamed. One over the top, one underneath, call it good.
Beating man is a different animal than beating zone. So
right.
That's not to say that they can't do it. They're incredible athletes. They wouldn't be playing wide receiver at Ohio State Wide Receiver University. So they've got skills.
Yeah, you get this. You play this game wide open field, and it's going to be a long night for Notre Dame. They're going to be chasing those receivers all over the field. And that's why I said it's so crucial. And can Notre Dame win? Yes, and they've got to win the trenches. And no matter what the score is at the end of the game, if you leave the game and say, Notre Dame dominated the trenches, I think they can win. But if you're saying it was about even, or Ohio State won the trenches, it's going to be a long night for Notre Dame.
If Ohio State wins the trenches, it's game over.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
And I'm not sure Notre Dame can put pressure on Howard with just 4.
They're going to need some safety blitzes, some quarterback blindside blitzes. I hate being so biased, but I go back to the 92 national championship when nobody gave Alabama a chance. But again, there wasn't a playoff format. We had 4 weeks to prepare. And the defensive coordinator for that game, he ran something he'd never ran before and never ran again. He had anywhere from 8 to 10 people on the line of scrimmage every play. And you didn't know where they were coming from, and it overwhelmed Miami. Other than a late busted coverage touchdown at the end of the game, Alabama held them to 6 points that year and in that game, and nobody gave them a chance. I feel like both these teams are built very similar. Notre Dame's built to how Alabama was built, and Ohio State's built to how Miami was built. Then very, very comparable. And again, you can call it scheme or whatever. Alabama won on the scoreboard. That's all that matters. I think Notre Dame really needs to do a few different things to win this game.
So, Ed, what's your key? What's your big key takeaway, Ed, that Notre Dame needs to do to win this game? Because I have a feeling that when we go to our picks, I kind of think I know how it's going to go. But if Notre Dame's going to win, what's your biggest key?
Notre Dame has got to survive the first quarter to first half. They got to be able to keep Ohio State from starting fast. And that's probably my biggest key to the game. But I just don't think Notre Dame's going to be able to do that. I think by halftime, Ohio State's going to have this game in hand. That's just my thoughts.
What do you? So I told you.
I'm seeing a final score somewhere like 34-17.
So close. I had 31-17.
And I'm not so sure that 17 won't come with a late touchdown when it doesn't matter. I just think that Ohio State's going to have the foot on the throttle, and if Notre Dame isn't ready to go from the get-go, it's going to get out of hand fast.
If they get down 14-0, Ohio State scores the first 2 possessions, it might be a wrap, and it could get ugly. No, you're right. Ed's 100%. The first 2 possessions on both sides, Notre Dame needs to be either in the lead or right there with them.
I think, worst case scenario, both teams have 2 possessions and Ohio State's up 14-0.
Oh, that's
best case scenario for Notre Dame. Each team has 2 possessions. Notre Dame's up 3-0.
Yep.
Or 7-0. Like, take the initial punch, like Ed said.
And 8-9-minute drives. They've got to. Notre Dame's got to sustain long 10, 15 play drives.
And I think one of the biggest keys on Notre Dame's offense is what can Leonard do with his legs? Can he get that 3rd and 4 first down with his legs if the coverage is there and there's nowhere to deliver the ball? I mean, I think those are all huge keys.
When all these running quarterbacks, it's if that's what you're depending on, can he stay healthy through the whole game? Because they're going to be coming with the wood, and he is their number one target. And when he's got the ball and he's running around the end or he's coming up the middle, everybody is going to be hitting him. It's going to be meeting at the ball.
He's a big tough boy, though. He's built for it. Thankfully he's not built like a Jaden Daniels or someone like that.
He's not that thick.
He's pretty tough. He's a pretty tough, good sized kid.
I wanted to mention too, John puts in his pick here, and I would have guessed nothing other than what he's going with the Irish all the way. I wish him all the best, but the Bottom Line crew also wants to extend our thoughts and prayers to John too. I know he's going through a family situation that is going to be pretty tough, and just know that we're all thinking about you, man, and hopefully everything goes as well as it can for you, and that your family member gets back with it and gets back to it as soon as possible. But just know we're thinking about you, John.
Yeah, razzing each other about sports is one thing, but family's family. So we are definitely thinking about you, John. So
Yeah. I hope they can celebrate Monday night together.
that's right. And like I said, I truly am pulling for Notre Dame. I guess I'm an underdog guy anyway, but I just think a lot of things have to go right. Turnover battle, the defense has to play really well. You got to pressure Howard. You've got to – it just all those little things have to add up. Leonard's got to get a few first downs, some key first downs with his legs. They have to – if Ohio State is putting a lot of pressure in the run game, they have to be able to get the ball down the field with Leonard's arm. So, it can happen, but I think there's just a lot of things that I don't think Ohio State has to play the perfect game to win this.
No.
I feel like Notre Dame has to play the perfect game and things have to go their way to win this. That's my feeling. Even though I want Notre Dame to win, I feel like they have to play the perfect game, and Ohio State can still make – I believe Ohio State doesn't have to win the turnover battle to win this game. So, I mean, that just shows you, I think, the margin for Notre Dame. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I hope I'm wrong.
The margin of error for Notre Dame is razor thin in this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
So without further ado, and the watchers can give their picks in the comment line as well. But let's go ahead and give our picks for this game. And if you want to throw a score in there, you can certainly do that. But let's get this game picked, and then we'll take a quick break and come back.
I'm taking Ohio State, even though I'm rooting for Notre Dame, and I'm sticking with that 31-17.
And I'm going, like I said, I'm going with my 34-17 Ohio State win. What about you two?
Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was kind of hoping to go last.
Oh, I'll go.
you guys-
I'll go.
Okay.
Marty's saying Ohio State by 7.
I got and again, I'm a rare breed. There's not many diehard born and raised, especially in Tuscaloosa, Alabama fans that pull for Notre Dame. Is kind of supposed to be one of our no-nos. But I've never really had a problem with Notre Dame. I like their history and tradition, and I just like a lot about their program. I'm going with Ohio State 24-20, but I will be pulling for Notre Dame, and I do think they can win, but it's got to be ground and pound, long possessions. If the turnover battle ends up 2 for Ohio State and 0 for Notre Dame, good shot at winning this game, and they still do, but they cannot, like Ed said, they cannot start off slow. Game's over if they start out 2 scores behind. But give me Ohio State 24-20, but go Irish.
Brock is predicting a 17-16 win by Notre Dame.
That's the kind of game they need to win.
Yep.
That's the kind of game they need to win.
Mike is saying Ohio State by 24. That'll be a blowout.
Mm.
What about you, Chad?
Well, I was telling somebody earlier this week that when Notre Dame is good and elite, it's great for college football.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. Love them, hate them, ambivalent to them, doesn't matter. When they are really good, when they're relevant and they're elite, it's really good for college football because of their historic presence, their historic past in college football, all the national titles, all the Heisman trophies, all the movies, all the great players that have come from that program. You know, they haven't won a title since '88. Lou Holtz.
Yep.
You two young fellas can hardly even remember that.
I remember they were tough back. Rocket Ismail, man. I remember the Rocket.
Tony
I was a
Rice
big Lou
at
fan back when
quarterback.
he was with the Arkansas Razorbacks before he went to Notre Dame.
Now, that was before my time.
Yes, definitely.
Lou being with the Arkansas Razorbacks was my high school days back in the early 80s, right around 80, 82.
Well, all you guys are going Ohio State. I'll be the contrarian. I'm going to say Notre Dame. I'm going to say 24-20 Notre Dame.
I hope you're
Trying to
right,
let
Chad.
I'm helping you get caught up here, Brett.
Man, look, I'm pulling for Notre Dame, and you know, because they're underdog. But either way, with us being football fans, I don't think none of us wants to see a butt whooping. I think we want to see something go down the wire. Since our teams are not involved, a field goal. How about overtime? I mean, can you imagine? Notre Dame's got the coaching, and they've got the pieces to where if they've got to outplay Ohio State a little bit, but they can win this game. I think Notre Dame definitely wins the money on this one, which is just for the bettors, obviously.
Just wanted to do one more quick plug for the UFL. There's going to be a lot that's going to start happening here soon with the rosters and whatnot. I know that they kind of did a purge, all the teams, like I said earlier. But rather than spend too much time talking about who all the teams dropped, it's kind of probably a waste of time, because a lot of these teams, of course, are going to call some of those players right back again. But anyway, really looking forward to the UFL season, and things will get a lot heavier and hotter on that. You know, we plan on having guests on leading up to the UFL season. We've already lined up a couple, so be looking for that. But let's go ahead and take our break, and when we come back, again, this is courtesy of the UFL, just as a little teaser to get you going. But when we come back, we'll be talking NFL, but here is courtesy of the UFL.
The best of the best is coming together. There's no more what ifs. We're on one league now.
Ready to set it off. I'm number one in the building.
There's no more talk. Put up or shut up. We'll see who the top dogs is now.
Strap it up and line it up.
Joining forces means more power.
Delirium in D.C.
More potential. More reach.
Unbelievable.
Look for a chance to play ball, man. A chance to show that you still got it.
The hunger is unreal.
Helmet goes on. Nothing else in the world matters.
Tell them I'm ready. Whenever they walk, 'cause I'm ready.
A league that pushes the envelope and opens the door to living the dream.
I've been an underdog my whole career.
Football is kind of my last resort. If I could just get this one little break.
Brace the moment, man. This is as fun as it gets right here.
United, they stand to stake a claim to springtime for America's favorite game. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
You know we ready. Yes, sir. Ready to run it back.
Hell yeah, I'm ready.
For a new era,
Let's go.
new challenges,
Best in the nation.
a new beginning.
The time is now.
Line it up, Playboy. Let's do it.
I can't wait to see you guys play.
Are you ready?
This is the United Football League.
Just don't blink.
I'm ready, Brett. Are
Let's
you ready?
go!
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I fell asleep there. Sorry about that.
Oh, my God. You won't be. You won't be, bud. You'll come
I know.
around.
I know. Footy's opening up, man. 50 days until opening game. I'm pumped.
So let's turn our attention to the NFL.
The games or hot takes? What do you think?
Should we go with hot takes first, or should we go with the games?
Well, I think we go with the games because I think there's a lot of talk about in these games. and then we can fill in with the hot takes at the end. So I think we probably better go with the games first.
All right. Well, let's talk first about the Saturday early game. Houston Texans, who ended up being a surprise for me because I don't know. I kind of was a firm believer that the Chargers were going to take care of business, but they did not. So we got Houston heading into Kansas City. Kansas City's an 8.5-point favorite. It's going to be the first game on Saturday. What's your initial thoughts, Chad?
My initial thoughts are Houston. It's a fun story. It's a big win for them as a franchise. I think it was a really bad loss for the Chargers. It wasn't a good look. It just reinforces I'm not a Justin Hebert believer. But I think Houston, an indoor Southern team who plays in a dome, going up to Kansas City, that's against that team. That's a big tough ask. So we'll see if Houston's can sack up and get that one done. We'll see.
Well, for me, I just think that Kansas City's pedigree is going to win this game. Again, Houston's a nice story. Somehow, they were 10-7 during the regular season. They come and they beat a Chargers team. I guess I'm still thinking maybe the Chargers are a year away. Maybe they were just a good story. Harbaugh got them to the playoffs, whatever. But I think, Kansas City's been in every possible position you can think of when it comes to the playoff football. It's at home. I think it's just a huge ask for Houston to go into Kansas City and even remotely think about winning this game.
And here's the weather.
I tell you what, real quick on that. I think back to the early 90s and when Dallas was on that first run and we're all like, they're not going to make the Super Bowl. Then they make the Super Bowl. And we're all like, they're too young. They're a year away. They're not going to win this. Buffalo's got all this experience. And then we all know what happened. They kicked Buffalo's ass.
Right.
So, yes, I think they're a year away or 2 years away or 3 years away or never going to happen. But he had, CJ had a rough sophomore year. It wasn't quite as glorious and amazing as his rookie year. He had the old sophomore slump. I don't know about this. What about that weather, Ed?
Well, they'll be starting when it said it's warmest, but the high on Saturday in Kansas City is supposed to be 33 degrees, but it's supposed to get down to 4 that night. So you got to believe that by the time that sun starts setting at 5 o'clock, it's going to get chilly. And with Houston being a dome team coming up from the south, that's strike one. But if you remember a couple years ago, Houston went into Kansas City, and everybody was saying Kansas City was going to have a cakewalk. And if you remember, that was the game that Houston just got out to that big lead. Remember? They were up by, I think it was as much as 3 or 4 touchdowns they got up in the first half or whatever. And Kansas City ended up coming back and winning at the end. So something tells me that old Andy Reid will make sure that that's not going to happen again. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned the weather, Ed, but we get Brett crap all the time on the show. He has no idea. And even Ed, Ed's from Iowa, so he has an idea, even though he lives in St. Louis now. But when I jumped in my pickup this morning, actually it was yesterday, it was negative 9 degrees.
Yep.
Negative 9 degrees.
Yep.
So
that's
I'm
as
just
close
saying,
to hell as I ever want to be.
You talk about these NFL teams playing the cold weather. We talked about it with Minnesota at the beginning of the game. they switch to a dome team and all of a sudden they lose a little bit of their toughness. There is something to be said when the elements, I mean, I'm just telling you, people that live in the north may just be a little tougher when it comes to the elements than people that live in the south.
And
I'm just saying.
The thing to pay attention to, all of you Southerners or people who live in the warm temperatures, if that sky is really clear at the beginning of the game and there's no clouds, it's going to get cold in a hurry. Those clouds act like a blanket and they hold the heat in.
Yeah, they do.
When I walked outside the other night, I was like, oh, there's no clouds. This is going to get bad. Next morning, and it was negative something. I'm trying to start the car.
When I wake up in the morning and I start the pickup and I'm like, brr. And then you go down the road, the sun's shining, everything would look great. And you see the sun dogs around the sun.
Do you have do you guys have snow on the ground right now?
Yeah, we got just a little bit here, a little snow.
Yeah, when you walk on the snow and it crunches, it's cold outside.
It's like, oh my God.
We've got another snowstorm coming here, supposed to be next week, and it's supposed to get down in the teens here. So I can't even imagine what you guys got to deal with up there.
Jay's got a hot take here.
And I saw that. He's
league in close-ups.
Yeah, he's right. But I will tell you those. I'm sure there's guys on the Houston roster that they grew up north of the certain line, whatever you want to call it. But when you get acclimated to weather, whether it be in Houston or Florida or even Southern Alabama, whatever, and then you hit that cold again for the first time in a while, it don't hit the same. I can tell you that much right now.
I used to be able to tolerate. So for, in my previous life, I drove for UPS, and for 20 years, I worked in the winter when it was 20 below, and I worked in the summer when it was 100 degrees, and I could handle the temperatures. I've been in the office for 15 years, and I am so soft. I cannot take those extremes anymore. It's just, even I live in it, it's just not the same. When you're out in it all the time, it's totally different.
It's so difficult to it.
When we went back to Iowa for Christmas, you talk about getting soft. I finally, it took me 20 years, but it's finally happened because I forgot what it was like to jump in a cold car that's been sitting out all night. And you get in and literally every bump you hit, everything you do, the car is making noise.
Even your car is throwing the towel in. Yeah. Even the car. So, Chad alluded to it. And again, harping on the weather, but it is a thing. We have friends in Texas. He's like, how cold does it get up there? And I said, here's the problem with living in Iowa. In the winter, we wake up in the morning and it's negative degrees, whatever it is. Like I said, it was -9 yesterday. But in the summer, the humidity can be so bad you can cut it with a butter knife. So you want to talk about toughness or whatever you want to talk about, we deal with every extreme of weather.
Yeah.
It can be hotter than Hades in the summer and you can cut it with a butter knife, or it can be cold as the moon in the winter. So
and that butter knife snaps like a dried old twig.
Yes, it's not.
The only advantage,
not
I guess, you could say for Houston is that, Joe Mixon, their running back, he's used to playing in Cincinnati, so he's got an idea of some cold there. You've got C.J. Stroud being an Ohio State Buckeye. Granted, the college games are pretty much over before it gets, real colds, but they do have.
And then you play a bowl game somewhere hot.
At least know what they're in for, so that can help them. But ultimately, more times than not, when warm weather teams head up north in January, it just doesn't end well. So I will lead off.
It's mental.
The picks, and I'm taking Kansas City, but you guys can continue your discussion. But I think Kansas City's going to win. And I think they'll kick it into gear, and I don't think it'll be as close as a lot of their regular season games ended up being, but I think they'll win comfortable. By comfortable, I mean
I'm
10 to 14 range, somewhere there. I can see that.
I'll take
I
the
think-
Chefs. I'll take the Chefs. I don't think it's going to be as like Mike here. Mike says they're going to win by 17. I think it was that. I think it might be 10, but the Chefs are going to run away with this game.
I think their pedigree, I think their experience, I think the weather, I think a lot of things are obviously playing against Houston here. I don't know if Kansas City, they were able to do it last year. Offense, we talked about it last year. Kansas City's offense, man, they just don't have it this year. And then they found ways to win. We potentially could be looking at the same thing this year. I don't think we're looking at a blowout here. I tend to lean more toward what Ed said, the whole 10 points I could see, but I think it'll be more of a dominating 10 points than the scoreboard will look like. So yeah, I have Kansas City. Brett, you picking against the Chefs?
Well, if anybody's followed us this year and has followed my picks, that's one of the main reasons I'm way behind. Is I picked every game against the Chiefs and picked every game for the Jets. And when you add all that up, that's why I'm the cellar dweller, among other things. Look, growing up with a father that loved to pick and bet on football games, he always told me, son, one thing, when it gets cold, that ball starts bouncing real funny.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys don't know how to hold on to it. They can't feel their fingers. They can't catch it. Yeah, on and on and on. Back to the weather that we were talking about. And Kansas City's at home. Unfortunately, I think Kansas City wins this game going away, and they even cover the spread easily.
And I agree with Jay in the fact that, Jay comments that Mahomes and Kelsey seem to have another gear when it comes to the playoffs, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I know last year Travis Kelsey regular season was really forgettable, but in the postseason, like Jay says, he just hits another gear, and suddenly he becomes a go-to guy. And I think especially in a cold weather game, I think Travis Kelsey is in for a big game. So looks like Mike is saying Kansas City by 17. Brock is picking Kansas City by 16. I don't see anything on here for Houston. So
Well, let's not forget Spags and the Kansas City defense is pretty good too.
Yeah.
I'll have plenty of things cooked up for Stroud that I think, I don't give Kansas City's offense. I don't think they're going to score 30 points, but I think Houston might be in for a day.
And Stroud has really struggled this year for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, he had a good game this last week, but I think that's more the exception than the rule.
I would agree 100%. So, all right, let's look. I think that's probably enough on that game. Let's look at Washington at Detroit.
The Saturday night game.
7 o'clock. Of course, it's inside, so Detroit does not enjoy the weather factor that we talked about with Kansas City. But there is a 9.5 point Vegas spread on this. So I will ask you, Chad, do you believe the 9.5 point spread with, Jaden Daniels and Washington coming to town? They're obviously playing with house money. Detroit's defense. Detroit has shown that they struggle against quarterbacks that are extremely mobile. And I think all season long we can agree Jaden Daniels was good on his feet. So my question to you is, do you believe the 9.5 point spread in this game?
That's an excellent question. You ask a lot of good questions.
Thanks,
Good night.
bud.
Good night. Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to be able to do it. The question will be, to me, is the eternal question of the Detroit Lions. And I know At least in the beginning of the show, we had a lot of the Detroit boys in here. Will Dan Campbell, will he have the common sense enough to know when to go for it on fourth down and when to kick it, whether it's a field goal or a punt? So far, he is hitting 7s and 11s. He is nailing it. Will that continue? Probably. I mean, they've really got that defense turned around in Washington. They're playing really good. But 9.5 points is a big number. I think they can cover it. I think they probably cover it.
Okay. Brett, same question to you. With all the things that I pointed out, Jaden Daniels, mobile quarterback. Detroit does struggle with mobile quarterbacks. Is this point spread too much if you had to bet on this game?
If I had to bet on it, I would do a 3-team teaser, and I would be plus a half with Detroit. But that's just me, Look, Detroit's going to win this game, and it's just, I like to be a better analyst, so to speak. They're just better. They're just a better team. Now, Jaden Daniels is probably going to present some problems for them, but ultimately, I think 10 to 14 is about right. It's been a heck of a year for Jaden. He'll be the rookie of the year and all that. His team's in the playoffs. Dan Quinn's fantastic on the defensive side of the ball, but Detroit is just playing on another level right now. And I don't think Washington's ready for that in that dome, in that environment. It's going to be wild and crazy. And, it's just Detroit and more Detroit.
And some news that I saw today, David Montgomery was a full participant at practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's back, so that's
he
big.
Is back. Full participant at practice.
So
now you've got Thunder and Lightning back in the backfield if they utilize him in this game like normal.
I actually think this gives I actually think this matchup helps Detroit in the long run because, as Eric says, Detroit has struggled against mobile quarterbacks. And if you look at, if Detroit's going to make the Super Bowl, more than likely they're going to be going up against a mobile quarterback like, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. And that's really something in their practice that they can't simulate. I mean, you look at Detroit, Jared Goff, he can't simulate that. So if you talk about a good rehearsal for them from a defensive standpoint, especially to find out the errors of their ways against Washington, if they get past Washington, I think it's a good tune-up for who they could potentially face in the Super Bowl if they get there.
So, with that being said, do we lend any credence to Washington's playing with house money? Rookie quarterback, first-year coach. I mean, does Washington come into this game and say, listen, it's kitchen sink, it's Dan Quinn's gonna try to Dan Campbell type of thing? Like, is Washington, we've got to win. We've done more than what was expected of us. Does that give Washington any chance in this game, Chad? Any chance?
If I were Dan Quinn, I would call Kevin O'Connell and ask him how it worked out for him to try and out Dan Campbell.
Right.
That's not a good recipe. That is not a good thing to try. I think they can cut it loose. I think they can try anything. I just think that they're way too inexperienced, and I just think it's too big of a hill to climb. I think it's fantastic they've gotten as far as they have. It's been a long time since the Redskins have had a playoff win, So that's pretty fantastic. They've got their franchise quarterback from everything that it looks like. They just need to get him some more weapons. Looks like the coach is doing really well. Looks like they've made the right move so far. They can try and make it interesting. I just think the Lions are just going to be too much for them.
Offensively, I think that's where the Lions. I just don't know if Washington has the weapons, as you said, and I agree with you there. If Detroit's able to turn this into a track meet, very similar to what we talked about with Notre Dame and Ohio State, I just can't see Washington keeping up. But as Brett has alluded to several times, Daniels throws a great deep ball. And so if McLaurin can get on that outside and he can complete a couple of those that kind of stun Detroit a little bit, who knows? But does Detroit implement something very similar to what they did in the last game of the regular season to Minnesota? Do they Dan Gamble it and bring tons of pressure on Daniels to try to throw the rookie quarterback off? Or do they sit back and say, okay, you beat us because we're not going to let you beat us with your legs? What do you see, Brett? What would you do, Brett?
I mean, Daniels is going to get his more than likely, especially with Detroit's lack of pass rush. It's a total different opponent than what they were dealing with Minnesota. You can't. Between Williams and Gibbs and this guy and that guy, not Montgomery back, and my goodness, Goff sometimes hits 20 or 25 passes in a row. There's just not. This would be a big time upset. I think Detroit's pretty much everybody's heavy Super Bowl favorite. Whether to make the Super Bowl or to win it right now, and Washington's just not. They're just not there yet.
So Ed, what do you do?
They need some more pieces.
Do you gamble, Ed, with the all-out blitz type look like they did with Minnesota, and run the risk that Daniels gets out in the open with all the D-backs heads turned in man coverage, and Daniels potentially gets out in the open? Or do you say, listen, rookie, come beat us with your arm because we're going to try to keep you in the pocket. We have to limit your ability to run. What say you?
They may bring it to begin with just to see how he reacts to it. They may see if they can rattle him as a rookie and bring the heat like they did with Darnold. I guess I would be shocked if they didn't try to do that, because I think in the games like against Buffalo that they had where their defense sat back, they gave up a couple 40 burgers there during the season. And so I think that they have found, especially against the Vikings, they found that trying to make things happen maybe helps the defense and doesn't expose them as much to some of their weaknesses. So I think they're going to bring the heat and see if the same thing will work.
The thing that Daniels has shown, though, is he shows a tremendous amount of poise as a rookie. They win that game last week, and when they show him getting off the bench, he's not freaking out. He's not nothing. He stands up, he smiles, and he walks over and shake hands. And so if they are able to put that pressure on him and they get him rattled, that would definitely be another feather in Dan Campbell's hat. I just don't know if with the success that Washington has had, that if they can really truly rattle Daniels. And let's face it, Daniels has way more escapability and way more mobility than a Sam Darnold had. So can they do that? We shall see. I lean more towards, I think they're going to try to keep him in the pocket. I think that's the biggest, they may bring one blitzer, they may, the line may move and they may bring a linebacker up in the A gap or something just to try to cut those lanes off. But I think they're going to try to fool him more with coverage and make him read the defense instead of just all out blitz, man across. I got to try to get the ball out of my hand type of thing, because I think Daniels has showed he's pretty cool under pressure. That's just my guess.
when I don't know, with a guy as mobile as him, you don't want to bring the pressure up the middle. You want to come off the edge because you come from the middle. It pushes him to the outside where he can get out and escape and throw the ball on the run. Whereas if you bring the pressure off the edges, it helps keep him trapped in the pocket where everybody else can help. So I think they're going to be blitzing. I think it's going to be corner blitzes and safety blitzes off the edge rather than linebackers coming up the middle.
Well, I'm just saying, if you take your edges and your
you got to set the edge and not let him get outside.
And you set those edges, and when he steps up, you've got a linebacker coming right at him. I mean, to me, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think you can afford to bring the house like they were doing with Minnesota.
No.
They clearly saw something with Minnesota because LA exposed it too. They clearly saw something with Minnesota in the offensive line that wasn't going. And maybe they see something in Washington with the tape they can expose. But Daniels is a different animal than Sam Darnold. So, they have to set the edge. They've got to try to keep him in the pocket, and they've got to force pressure up the middle somehow to keep him there and get him to get rid of the ball and then use the coverage to maybe confuse him. I just don't believe they can do the things that they did to Minnesota. I just don't believe they can do that because I think Daniels, he finds a crease and you're bringing 7 guys to put pressure on him. How many yards does he run for?
I think you're going to see a lot of mush rush. I think that the defensive tackles, they're just going to kind of push the offensive linemen, and they're waiting for him to try and take off, and they're going to let the edge guys do their edge thing. And I don't think this would not be a good game for Warren Sapp because you wouldn't want him shooting right up the middle, flushing that kid to the outside, and then he runs for 70 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So,
and another question I have too is it seems like, as you hear the Dan Campbell craze of going for it on 4th down, and it's kind of seems like it's bled. That going for it on 4th down thing is starting to bleed off on other teams, and teams are starting to think that they have to go for it on 4th down too, because
Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, you look at Minnesota. Minnesota, uncharacteristically, I mean, they got to 14 wins during the regular season, playing good defense, playing good offense, and not taking chances. And what happens against Detroit? All of a sudden, Minnesota starts going for it on 4th down instead of taking the field goals. So then, this last Monday against the Rams, what happens to Minnesota? Minnesota went for it on 4th down again.
Yeah.
And they didn't make it either time, and one was right before halftime with 50-some seconds left. They go for it at midfield, don't get it, and end up giving a cheap touchdown that basically puts the game out of reach. So my question is Dan Quinn going to fall into the same trap when Dan Campbell goes for it a couple times on 4th downs and says he's successful?
But
does Dan Quinn all of a sudden start going for it on 4th down thinking he's got to keep pace?
But Ed, here's where I believe it's different. 2 things. One, Minnesota was playing for the number 1 seed. So in that case, I believe Kevin O'Connell made the wrong decision. In Washington's case, as I said before, they're playing with house money. So Dan Quinn going for it, to me, would make total sense because he's trying to keep the pressure on Detroit. Also, the second thing I think that is in Washington's favor, why I would be less disagreeable for Dan Quinn in this game to do Dan Campbell things, they also have something Minnesota didn't have. Jaden Daniels is dangerous on his feet. Sam Darnold, not so much. So I think it's those 2 factors as to why I would be okay with Washington maybe playing a little, call it out of character, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to Minnesota playing out of character in that last game and even in the first round of the playoffs. That just wasn't who Minnesota was. But in Washington's case, I think we can all agree. House money, that nothing to lose type of thing. But they also have Daniels who can pick up first downs with his feet.
But what
And I
does Dan Campbell always say though when they interview him? They're always trying to steal a possession or two. He's always
Right.
saying we got to steal a possession or two. We have to get our defense to get a turnover or whatever. Getting Washington to forgo points, to go for it on fourth down and not get it, is right up. It's exactly what Dan Campbell wants. So again, I still say that it's up to. Well, I guess we'll see, but I just think if he falls into Dan Campbell's trap, that it's not going to end well.
Here's my question for you then, Chad, using Ed's analysis right there. Who would you trust more 4th and 5, Sam Darnold or Jaden Daniels? Now we're talking Sam Darnold's been in the league for 7 years, whatever, and Jaden Daniels is a rookie. Who do you trust more?
I don't trust either of them.
I'll take Daniels all day twice on Sunday.
I guess I'll take
Daniels.
I
His legs are that extra that.
Yes, 100%.
And Darnold already proved Ed, he can't do it. So I would say this. I mean, we've been cracking on Campbell most of the season about going forward on fourth down, and I'm going to give him credit for this. His motivation was, I'm going to get these guys not to be afraid of it. I'm gonna make sure that these guys from the beginning, from the first snap of the season to the last, if we're going to go forward on fourth down, that they've done it all year long and they're confident and they're not scared and their pucker factor's not, they're not all knotted up, and it's just another play to them. And he's done that, and that's fantastic that he's done that. However, will he know when not to do it? That will be the question.
Yeah. And Jay brings up.
He didn't know not to do it last year.
Jay brings up a good point too here. He's talking about when you compare weapons to weapons, Detroit has the better weapons. So
no question.
If you control Daniels and can keep him under control of the game, it's over. It's a wrap.
Yeah, I would agree. But
quarterback. This is a big ask for a rookie quarterback.
Right. That's why I contend. What do they have to lose?
Sure, but
if I'm Dan Quinn, I'm throwing the kitchen sink. Yeah.
Right. And what do they have to lose? That's when you start making stupid decisions.
No,
you keep thinking, I gotta go.
Okay. So you're down 10 points.
Washington can't beat Detroit straight up, I think is what Eric's saying.
Yes, I bet I'm going to make a wager right now.
Yeah.
Unless somebody wants to go against it, we're probably all picking Detroit. So and Vegas has them at 9.5. So my question is, yes, maybe during the regular season, Dan Quinn says those 3 points are important. But in this situation, if you ask 100 people who you taken, and none of them are Washington or Detroit fans, and 100 out of 100 is saying I'm taking Detroit, then what does Washington have to prove beyond this point? So him going forward on 4th and 5 when they're down 10, I mean, is that really as big a deal as Kevin O'Connell going forward on 4th and 5 in the Detroit game, last game of the season?
But what I say to that is this: if you say down 10, 4th and 5, if they're in field goal range and you take the field goal, now it's a 1-score game. You decide to go for it and you don't get it. Detroit goes down the field and scores. Suddenly you've went from a 7-point game to a 17-point game. I mean, that's one decision like that can be the difference between a game that's still in reach and a game that just totally got away from you.
But they kick the field goal. They're still down by 7. Detroit goes down because they really haven't showed any pendency to stop them, and they're trying to stay with them, and they go down and score. Now, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what's the difference between 14 and 17? That's all I'm saying.
I think Washington does need to steal a couple possessions, and what I mean by that is a fake punt, here or there.
Control the football, keep it in their hands, keep it out of Detroit's hands. I mean,
that's really not how Washington plays, but yeah. Because, Daniels and McLaren, they make a lot of splash plays, which is great and wonderful, but the problem is you turn around and give it back to Detroit and, not with, statistics in front of me or a computer screen in front of me right now. I imagine Detroit probably leads the league in scoring. If not, they've got to be top 2.
right.
This is not a good matchup for Washington. And stranger things, we've seen crazier upsets before, but I just don't see it. Not in this one.
Right.
Okay,
So the picks.
so
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take Detroit. I'll go first. I'm going to take Detroit.
Before we get into our pick, I'm going to let Brett decide this chat line feud here.
Uh-oh.
Because it involves UFL kickers.
Uh-oh.
You got Jake Bates versus Aubrey. And there's argument to be made who's the better kicker. And they've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about
They're both great kickers, and Bates is the story for the league.
You're starting a team, Brett. Which kicker do you want?
No, I'm taking Aubrey.
There you go. So KJ, you just won the argument. Sorry, Brett.
And I like both kids' stories, and I'm familiar with Yarbury being a Birmingham kid, and he played soccer at Notre Dame. I know the whole breakdown, but he's got just as good a leg as Bates, and typically he's a shade more accurate. So I'm going with Yarbury.
Okay, so let's get to the pick.
Detroit.
If you want to throw a score in there, feel free. But
I'm thinking Detroit somewhere in the neighborhood of 34-17, 34-20.
Oof. Yeah, give me Detroit.
34-20 is about exactly where I had it. Washington's going to probably put some points on the board, but Detroit's just too much. Just going to be too much.
I'm going to go.
Jesus. Drum roll. Say Detroit.
I'm going to say 38-20 Detroit.
Okay. All right. You were just thinking score. You weren't debating
Yeah.
pick.
Oh, no, I wasn't. No.
I was thinking, there's no way he's taking Washington.
I mean, I'll take that, but
I was waiting for him to go, give me the Redskins. We'll do it.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't going to do that.
Come on, Ed.
Chicken. All right. Now, here's where I would agree. We'll get into these next two games. I think these next two games are the nail-biter games of the week. I know Vegas has this game.
Anybody on the comment line either that took Washington, so it was a sweep.
Like I said,
Who was arguing over kickers?
Brock and KJ.
KJ.
KJ Disciple P.
Oh, KJ. Yeah.
KJ.
Yeah, I'm I don't want to get in the middle of their riff, but I'm sorry. No, Yarbury all day long and twice on Sunday. And it has nothing to do with him playing with Birmingham. I mean, I'm just being honest. KJ, I was in Birmingham last year when Birmingham and Michigan to decide the division, the USFL division. It was a 47-yarder by Bates. And when Holtz called the touchdown play on second down, I turned to everybody around me. They were all celebrating. I said, too soon. They said, what do you mean? I said, too soon. We scored too soon. So, hell, Bates can kick it from 70 yards. On the kickoff, they ran it to the 40. I thought, hell, he ain't got 10 more yards and kick it. Well, wide right by quite a bit decided that division last year and home field. And Jake Bates went wide right. So give me Yarbury. All right, back to the games, back to the playoffs.
Rams, Phillies. I don't know if I believe Vegas at 6.5 here. I don't know.
Yeah. Jalen, my buddy Jalen did not look good last week.
You know
Is
why
that
I
a-
can? You know why I can believe it? Because the first time they played, Saquon Barkley had almost 300 yards combined, total yards that game. And in a cold weather game against the Rams, are they going to have to put it in the air? Not if he's getting that kind of yardage. They ain't.
I think Saquon Barkley is a factor. I'm not disputing that. I think he's a huge factor in this game, but I think the Rams are a different team. I think they've proven that. They've proven that.
Forecast. What's the forecast? Let's get a forecast going. Weather forecast.
Well, I'll look. You guys
but
keep
Eric,
debating.
again, let me ask you this. Is your sudden fear of the Rams because of what you saw against Minnesota? Because if you look at the Rams 3 or 4 games prior to playing Minnesota, their offense was anemic. Their offense was, if they could get to 17 points for a final score, they were lucky. So this offense that you think that Stafford and their receiving core is going to be able to pull off against Philly,
Whoa.
number one, it's going to be cold. Number two, until they played Minnesota, they weren't really doing much on offense. So why all of a sudden?
I'm not.
Eric.
I'm not saying
Rams to win.
I am not saying I'm taking the Rams.
Whoa.
I'm just telling you.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
For all the talk that we talk, we say, oh, Kansas City. I realize they were, 15-2 this year or 16-1, whatever. When it comes playoff time, they're going to turn it on. Well, Matthew Stafford is no stranger to the playoffs and difficult games and stuff like that as well. So were you that impressed by Philadelphia's offense last week? Anybody impressed by Jalen Hurts' 131 yards? Like anybody?
I'm wrapping my brain around you actually going out on a limb and picking a big upset.
What's the forecast?
30. What time is the game? Get that off there, Ed. I know Henry's taking the Rams, which is a bold. 2 o'clock game. 2 o'clock game, and it says
38 possible, mostly cloudy with a bit of snow and rain at times in the afternoon.
No accumulations
for accumulating snow and slippery travel.
Yes, and wind 10 to 15 mile an hour. So the weather's going to be crappy.
So between Jalen Hurts running and Saquon Barkley running, and I would say with a concussion, I'd be worried about it. But did it bother him last week when they played? He still did the tush push and the whole ball of wax, which shocked the hell out of me. But it didn't seem to. They didn't hold back any.
Listen,
so how many points are the Rams going to win by, Eric?
Shut up! Don't be dumb. I never said the Rams were winning. I just said you can't.
We all heard you.
Rams. No, you didn't hear nothing.
Children, calm down.
Are you drinking? I mean, come on. I never once said that. I just said the Rams were a different team than when they played the first time. And Jalen Hurts didn't exactly light the world on fire.
No, he did not.
So 6.5 is bold. I'm still going to pick Philadelphia, but I think 6.5. I think this could be a little close to that. But I agree with Ed that Saquon Barkley, if he has a day, that 6.5 could be right. If
MVP Saquon Barkley.
I actually think that if the Rams were going to Detroit, they would have a better chance of winning this game than by going to Philadelphia, because I think the weather and the quality of Philadelphia's defense takes away a lot of the strength of what the Rams are coming in and are going to try to do.
So you're saying the Philly defense?
Because when the Rams were they were one of the teams that didn't they beat Detroit?
I'd have to look. It was.
I can't remember whether they beat Detroit. If not, they gave them a good game. I can't remember.
But
Well,
like I
Anybody
said,
want
playing it-
anybody want my take or no or what? What
Yes,
are we
go
doing?
ahead, Brett. Let's hear your
Uh,
take.
What do we
Yes,
usually
Brett.
say about some of these games is when the teams are hot and healthy. The Rams were banged up all to hell and back when they played the first time. Now, grant you, the MVP, which Chad is correct, ran through them like poop through a tin horn, as Nick Saban would say. But you just told me what the weather's going to be and what the ground's going to be like. The Rams are front seven are now healthy. What have I said all along before the season started? I felt like Philadelphia was the most loaded roster, most talented roster, but I got questions about their head coach. The Rams not only go to Philadelphia and keep the game close, they upset Philadelphia and go to the NFC Championship game. They win by 3. There's just, look, they're hot, they're healthy. Nakobe Dean, the middle linebacker, the signal caller for Philadelphia, is now out for the playoffs. He got hurt last week. Jalen, if they're smart, which again, this coach of theirs, that's my question. Give me the Rams quarterback over Jalen, even though I'm a Bama's fan. Give me the Rams head coach over the Eagles head coach, and the fact they're hot and healthy. Now, Philadelphia's got the best offensive line in the league, but Saquon Barkley's going to be slipping and sliding every which way, and he's going to be playing against 3 defenders with the Rams that were not in their first matchup. Give me the Rams
this year, guys.
and the upset.
The Rams and the Eagles did not play this year.
The Rams lost to
It's
Detroit.
the Chargers. The Eagles
Really?
went to L.A. and beat the Chargers. That
Yeah,
was the
well,
game we were thinking of.
The Rams beat Detroit week one.
The Rams lost to Detroit 26-20 in week 1.
But Saquon ran through the Chargers in L.A. Yeah. Give me the Rams straight up. It's a big upset, but the Rams right now are the better team. I know the weather's going to play a factor, and I know it's in a very tough, raucous environment with the worst fan base that was ever created on God's green earth, the Philadelphia Eagle fans. But give me the Rams.
So, Brett just brought up a couple points that I've mentioned in the past. Ed, I'm going to pose this to you. Would you take McVay or Sirianni?
McVay, not even close.
Okay, not even close. Would you take Hurts or Stafford?
Exactly.
Probably Stafford.
Okay,
Exactly.
probably Stafford. I would go with for sure Stafford, but that's fine. You took Stafford. If it's as crappy as we're talking about here, what do you suppose the Rams' main focus is going to be? Because Hurts did not light it up with his arm last week for dang sure.
He ain't going to.
And if the weather's going to be crappy,
no choice but to try and shut Barkley down. I mean,
okay. So now you say they have no choice but to try to stop Barkley. Do you trust Hurts with what you saw last week to be able to win it in crappy weather with his arm?
Another thing we're talking about weather, Jalen, not to cut you off, Ed, Jalen Hurts is a Houston boy, born and bred in Houston, played his college ball at Alabama. Now he did play his senior year at Oklahoma. He has been in Philadelphia some, but has he been in postseason? Do you trust Jalen Hurts in winter ball either, on top of the fact that, Stafford's a better thrower, better passer. They've got 2 wide receivers. The wide receivers are very similar. Philadelphia's not going to be able to do anything with Nakua for the most part. A.J. Brown's a problem.
What if AJ's going to be reading a book on the sidelines instead of playing? I don't know.
I'll take Jalen over Stafford.
You have been drinking.
I'll take AJ Brown and your lightning guy from Alabama at wide receiver, and I sure as hell will take Saquon Barkley over Kyrie Williams.
No, you're on it.
MVP Saquon Barkley. and I will take that Philadelphia Eagle defense that is probably the best in the league, really, over what did, and think of how bad they were last year, over the Rams defense, which is playing good. I don't understand this hate. I mean, I get you hating the Eagles fan base. I get that, but I mean, I just you're talking like you said you weren't picking the Rams, then you say you were picking the Rams.
I'm picking the Rams.
Well, Eric, I'm talking about Eric.
Oh.
I haven't told you who I'm picking yet.
The Rams. I'm not picking the Rams. I'm picking the Rams.
I haven't said I'm picking anybody yet.
Yeah, you're talking like you're picking the Rams, and
I'm just
then you start talking on the other side of your mouth, and you're like, "No, I'm not taking the Rams."
I am pointing things out, and I am asking you questions about which coach would you take. If it was the Bears, you want Bears higher than Sirianni or McVay?
Oh, I want McVay.
If the Bears quarterback position was open, would you want the Bears to bring in Stafford or Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts. Stafford's getting ready to retire. You want Stafford next year and for the next 5 years?
I'm just saying for 1 year, who you taking?
Here, drink some Mountain Dew. It'll make you better.
Yeah. Here, have some coffee because you're obviously sleeping through this take.
Eric, I still contend that the Rams would have a better shot of beating Detroit than they would of beating Philadelphia. Because if the Rams go into Philly with that defense and they can't throw the ball, Stafford, I mean, at least with Hurts can scramble and do something. Stafford, I mean, they'll eat him alive. If their running game doesn't get off the ground and Philadelphia shuts down their running game and forces the Rams to have to throw the ball, I say there's a chance, chance in hell they're going to win that game.
Philadelphia offensive line or the Rams offensive line?
Oh, that's not even. Philadelphia's got the best line in the league.
Right.
Okay. So
they've got an idiot for a coach and a quarterback that can't throw the ball.
Kyron Williams or Saquon Barkley?
Listen, it'd be Saquon Barkley against almost everybody but Derrick Henry. What I'm saying is, if you load the box and you make it difficult,
defense or the Rams defense.
Listen, I think they're both top 5 defenses.
And look, Philadelphia just lost their middle linebacker for the year.
What pills have you been popping, homie?
What I'm telling you is,
let me pull
their signal caller is out.
I need to see the tracks on your arms. You're shooting up the brown to black tar heroin over here.
Heron.
am only pointing out things about this game to give you another angle instead of just saying, "Oh, Philadelphia is going to win by 6.5 or 7, whatever." There's more factors to this than just, well, it's Philadelphia by a mile.
It's a little scary you have that in your car, bud. Just saying.
Yeah, really. If you pull some rope out, we've got some prop.
I got rope. I got tarps. I tell you, when these people come after me on these posts, I keep receipts.
Whoa. So, Chad, you got Philly?
Yeah, give me Philly.
Ed's got Philly?
I got Philly 27-17.
And you got the Rams, Eric.
You know what? I'm taking the Rams.
All right.
You talked him into it.
No.
He talked himself into it.
Bold.
Telling you. You better pray.
They're going to give them problems.
Right.
They're going to give them problems.
Next game, last game on the docket. Baltimore. This is going to be a tough one. Baltimore at Buffalo. Baltimore, 1-point favorite on the road.
In Buffalo.
In probably the snow. I'll give you the weather update here. You got Chad, let's hear your take first. Enlighten us with the genius.
Oh, well, you're football Jesus, so
I know, but I'm just enlighten us here.
I as constituted, I'm not a believer in either of these. I would start off when I talk about these two teams. I am not a believer as they are currently constituted in either of these teams being able to win a Super Bowl. So I'm going to preface everything I say having said that.
I don't believe in these teams, but here we go.
I don't believe they can win a Super Bowl. I think they make it to a Super Bowl. I mean, it's the obnoxious stat my oldest son is sick and tired of me hearing me say. Both of these teams have had their quarterback and their head coaches for more than 5 years. And that is a recipe for not going to win a Super Bowl because no coach in quarterback combination has been together for 5 years and not won a Super Bowl and then win one after being together for 5 years. So it's not going to happen. So one of the coaches has to get fired. But who am I going to take? Jay, what's your take?
What is your take?
Tell us what his take is of the comment line. We'll put it up there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I think with Henry in the backfield, I think it's just too much for Buffalo. I think that Josh Allen is one of the most overrated players in the NFL. I think he's right there with Justin Herbert as being one of the most overrated quarterbacks.
Oh, no. You didn't just compare him to Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I did compare him to Justin Herbert.
You cannot make statements like that and believe that anybody is going to take you seriously. Go ahead.
That's fake news.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm going to share this tape.
Yeah.
So what has Josh Allen done in the past in the postseason to say that I'm wrong?
Well, he has been competing against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City.
So
what has he done in the postseason to say I'm wrong?
You are telling me that
how many Super Bowls has he been to?
You want to sit there and say, or anybody can sit there and say, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback ever since Tom Brady. Okay, and then you're going to say Josh Allen hasn't accomplished nothing, but he's playing. It's like Peyton Manning. Well, I mean Tom Brady. Well, yeah, because he played against Tom Brady forever. It doesn't make Peyton Manning a bad quarterback. We're talking about the guy that should win the MVP. Because if I was to ask you this, give me 3 guys on the Baltimore offense. Go ahead, write them off quick. Give me 3 guys.
Mark Andrews. Names are no longer my friend. Henry and the quarterback. And
Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Bateman. You can list them all.
Yep.
When I say give me 3 guys on Buffalo, you're going to go,
Cook.
Oh, the guy who's overrated, Josh Allen.
Keon or whatever.
Yeah, I don't even know. Right. You're grabbing straws.
No, I know him.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Names are not my friend. All right, I got.
Right.
Brain.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
I'm a football analyst. Names are not my friend. I'm telling you, every person can all day long tell you who the Baltimore players are, who Lamar's handing it off to, who Lamar is throwing to. But when you say Josh Allen, it's like, oh, they got this rookie receiver and Dalvin Cook, and I think their tight end is like, oh, his name escapes me, Kincaid. But I mean, come on. The average person,
the whole time,
average person cannot even can give me who's helping Josh Allen.
You obnoxious motherfucker.
Josh Allen
5 minutes
goes like this every single week, and you're saying that he is so overrated.
Come on. Let's get nuts.
God, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Josh Allen is so overrated.
Right,
that guy has to put his Superman on every week.
I'm going to help you out, Chad. I'm going to mute Eric. So you got the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. Like I said, what has Josh Allen done in the postseason? He's done shit. He has done nothing. How many games has he won in the postseason? Did he win any last year in the postseason?
He's 6-5 in the postseason.
Okay, well, he's a little better than I thought. How many Super Bowls has he been to? Well, let's quit king and putting a crown on this guy like he's the greatest quarterback that's ever lived. Shut the hell
Hey, Chad.
I say he's overrated.
I thought he was muted.
If
Those-
you don't like my opinion, then why don't you wrap up
He has the
wrap up
opportunity to
blanket and
unmute.
go to bed and cry and have maybe
Those 5 losses, Chad.
their titty for a little while.
How many?
Otherwise, shut the fuck up and let me talk.
Those
Ask
5
me a
losses.
question, and then you don't let me talk.
This is going to be a great
All
reel.
right, I
Are you
muted
a
him.
senator in this
I
thing?
muted him
Muted.
again. I
Yeah.
muted him again. Go ahead, Chad. You got the
I'm
floor.
done. Baltimore, who I don't believe in either, is going to win this game. Go ahead, talk ass hat. Let's go.
And now another word from our sponsors.
With that said, let's take a little break and get things back together here. We'll be back after a word from our sponsor. Oh man, I got a headache now. I got a headache, but number 2, before you guys get started again, keep in mind that we do have a sponsor, and we would like to continue to have a sponsor. So let's
I have to
reel it back
bring.
in just a little bit here.
I have to bring some civility and some common sense back to the show.
Oh yeah, because you're civility. Yep.
I am. I'm not dropping F-bombs. I'm
But
sick.
I'm not going to talk over the top of you the whole time you're talking. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, because
I wouldn't do that to you. That would be
when you
When
you
you
do
guys
that,
talk, I wouldn't.
you
I
did
wouldn't
do that in the Rams and Philadelphia discussion.
You just go right ahead and talk. I'm sorry.
But
Go
anyway,
ahead.
of those 5 losses
And
that he
then-
has,
Hold on,
is I can talk over you. It doesn't bother me because I'm not going to throw a tantrum.
I
But
like it when people talk over the
of
top
those
of me.
5 losses, 3 of those are to Patrick
What
Mahomes.
sponsor?
So outside of Patrick Mahomes, he is 6-2. So if we're going to discredit Josh Allen as overrated because of those 5 losses, 3 of them are to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, let's just start taking inventory of what quarterbacks have lost to Patrick Mahomes, like all of them. So if, as I said before, when you look at Buffalo and you name who Buffalo has, people go, huh, Josh Allen and, they got that rookie receiver that's kind of done well for him this year. Well, I mean, I think we could look at Josh Allen and say he probably helped that rookie receiver along a little bit. Yeah, well, Kincaid's pretty good. I mean, he's not a top 10 tight end, but I mean, he's pretty good. And then there's Dalvin Cook, but he's not Derrick Henry. So if you want to compare who has what and who has this, and then say that Josh Allen is overrated,
Not Dalvin Cook, James Cook.
or James Cook, yeah.
But
But I
what
mean,
about
and you want to talk about who's, I can't even know. I don't even know the name of the running back because he's,
I know.
he is what it is. But
Yep.
if we want to put Lamar Jackson on a different level and say, well, he's overrated. Oh, but Lamar Jackson, no.
Lamar
Josh
Jackson-
Allen is not overrated. Josh Allen just happens to be in an era where, Patrick Mahomes exists. So that's for every quarterback. Some people would say Joe Burrow should be in the MVP discussion. They were 9-8, but Joe Burrow's numbers were phenomenal. So do we say, well, Joe Burrow beat Patrick Mahomes one time and hasn't really done anything outside of that, so he's overrated? No, not having. I don't agree with it. Josh Allen has done. They are 14-4 I mean, we all said Buffalo. Oh man, he doesn't. We can go back to the show we talked about it and said, man, Buffalo absolutely gutted their team. You know, they don't have anybody. I mean, now we're going to find out what Josh Allen really is. Well, guess what? What Josh Allen really is Buffalo 14-4. Case closed.
Who's
Brett.
in his division?
Brett.
Who's in his division? Who's in his division?
They play those 6 games. What about the other 8 that they
They
won?
play the Jets twice. They play Miami.
What about the
twice.
other 8?
And then who else do they play twice?
What about the other 8?
Well,
Brett, what do you
the
think, Brett?
Patriots. That's right.
Lend some civility to this.
After all that, all I got to say is give me Buffalo. I mean, give me Baltimore. Hell, I don't even know who I'm picking. Look, I thought it was going to be an upset with me picking Baltimore. I cannot believe they're going to Buffalo as a 1-point favorite. But I think the little extra that Lamar needed was someone like Derrick Henry. I can't believe I'm going that way. That someone's going to actually go into Buffalo and win this game. But give me Baltimore in a very close one, and it pretty much seals the deal for possibly the MVP for Lamar over Superman. But yeah,
it's already decided though.
Yeah,
they had to vote after the season. So, but I mean, if Lamar Jackson ends up being the MVP and he wins this game, then it justifies it. If Josh Allen ends up being the MVP and that Buffalo wins, it justifies it.
Right.
You know?
It's probably going to be the game of the weekend.
I hope so. Ed?
I have nothing else to add to the feud.
What do you think, Ed?
A little skittish. Lamar's got a lot to prove in this game.
Ed, it better be the right take. You have to say what Eric says. Otherwise, you're imbecile and you don't know anything. Go ahead, Ed.
Lamar's got a lot to prove because, let's face it, his playoff record isn't very good. It's 3-4 right now. But he's really come up small in the playoffs. And he really needs a Super Bowl to solidify his career, because all these MVPs that, he could possibly get his third one, but if he doesn't get to a Super Bowl, the MVPs are going to kind of ring hollow. So to validate things, he really needs a win. But Zay Flowers being out, what kind of a passing game are they really going to have? I think this game comes down to, can Buffalo stop Derrick Henry? Because I think if Baltimore is smart, they just keep feeding him the rock and just let Derrick Henry try to run roughshod over Buffalo, because I just don't. Lamar's a great football player. I just don't know that Lamar can go in to Buffalo and be the difference in this game. I think it's got to be Derrick Henry is the difference in this game. So I've been skittish on Buffalo the whole season. I just don't see how Buffalo is able to win, but yet they do. So I'm still, I wrote down in the first 5 minutes on Monday, I wrote down who I was taking in this game, and I still have it written down, but it hasn't come out of my mouth yet. So,
well, I'll ask you this then. Last year, how did Baltimore lose? Did they learn anything from last year? All of a sudden, Lamar comes out throwing the ball over there. They were a running team. Baltimore comes out, throws the ball over the joint, and they lose. did they learn anything from last year?
Well, they learned.
Does Derrick
they went
Henry
out and got
change
Derrick
their thought?
Henry.
Right. So I'm just saying, Derrick Henry has to carry the ball. What was the stat I saw? If he carries the ball 20 plus times, they win.
I see him more 25 to 30.
Yep.
In this game.
And I think they win the game that way. If they get the ball to him and he has success, I think they can win the game that way. Now, Flowers is out. So, I mean, I think they're going to have to.
Because last week, Baltimore tried to throw the ball quite a bit, but it ended up turning into Lamar scrambles because he had nowhere to throw the ball.
Right.
So I think this game, call Lamar your MVP, but I still say this game hinges more on Derrick Henry than it does Lamar.
Agreed.
So if you were an MVP voter, would your vote have went to Lamar?
I think that MVP has to be more than stats. I can when the Vikings were having were still in the hunt, still had a dog in the race, I put Sam Darnold's stats side by side with Josh Allen, and they were almost identical. Josh Allen had a few more rushing touchdowns than Sam Darnold, but for the most part, everything else, completions, yards, touchdowns, QBR, everything was pretty much even Steven. When I turned around and I then compared Darnold to Lamar, wasn't even close. Lamar's stats blew away Darnold. But if you go game to game to game, and I heard on one of the sports talk shows earlier this week, when you look at, some people measure MVPs differently. Some of them say, okay, how many games was he a real difference maker? Which games can you single-handedly say he meant the win, whether they won that game or not? With that stat, up until the last couple weeks, Josh Allen would have ran away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Josh Allen, as much momentum as he had with MVP, that's why there's such a push here late to make Lamar the MVP, is because for all those stats guys that look strictly at stats and don't go week to week to week and tally each game for its individual merit, it's easy to say, oh, Lamar in a cakewalk. So
same argument you could have made for Dak Prescott last year. Dak Prescott had the stats.
So let me ask this. I'll ask this to Chad. If Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are out on a night in the town this week and they get in a car wreck and both Lamar and Josh get hurt and they're both out for this game. Now suddenly you have Baltimore against Buffalo, both of them without their starting quarterbacks. Who do you give the advantage to?
Baltimore. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry.
And I would say the same thing. So that answers my question. When you talk about who is the MVP of the league, to me it's just as important not to just make it a stats show,
right?
But to also say what team could still survive and move on if they lost them. Baltimore has more in their arsenal. I think that Derrick Henry is head and shoulders. Now, Cook is a good running back. I give him that. But he's no Henry. And so if you take the quarterbacks off both teams, who's going to have the advantage? I say Baltimore has the advantage if you take the quarterbacks away. Therefore, I make Josh Allen the MVP because Josh Allen is more important to his team and the
100%.
success of his team.
Lamar, Offensive Player of the Year with the stats.
Oh, you could easily say Offensive
Yeah.
Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But a pure MVP, they always want to say, it's not stats. Who's the most important to their team? Well, you take Josh Allen off Buffalo,
They're toast.
they're not near the team that Baltimore could still be with still having Derrick Henry on their team.
They got Mitchell Trubisky.
What do you think, Brett? What do you say?
No, I agree with you. Derek would be the difference maker between both teams. It's still crazy though to think that Buffalo's had such a good season and they're at home and they're an underdog. That's still quite surprising to me with the rabid fans they have and the weather and everything. That I'm still a little taken back by the line, honestly.
The Bills actually signed a former Ravens quarterback for this week to mimic Lamar Jackson in practice.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. I had to look up the name.
Who is it?
It's Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown. So
yeah,
I don't think. I mean, maybe, somewhat. I don't know how you mimic Lamar Jackson. I just don't. I don't know how you mimic him. So
look,
you
it
got,
sounds to me by them doing that, they have a good idea they're going to have a problem this weekend, or they wouldn't have done that.
right.
So,
I mean,
so Chad, am I safe in assuming then that your pick is going to be Baltimore?
Yeah, I already said that earlier. Yeah, Baltimore. Give me the Ravens.
And Brett took Baltimore.
Yep.
So, Eric, are you going first? Or you want me to go first?
well, I went first on the Rams, Philadelphia. You go first on this one. Because I think I know which way you're picking. And I think we're picking the same.
Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo.
That's exactly who I'm picking. Because I just think that this is the year where Josh Allen, again, I agree, Baltimore has more weapons. You know, Derrick Henry is huge. But I'm also of the belief that I think Josh Allen this year, I think Kansas City is vulnerable. Buffalo beat Kansas City earlier in the year. I think this is the year where Josh Allen and Buffalo have to prove it. They're at home, so go get it. So I'm taking Buffalo as well.
I just don't have the confidence in Lamar yet postseason. I will agree that he's one hell of a football player, but until he proves it to me in the postseason, I just can't take him.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Derrick Henry could have a hell of a day. He rushes for 180 yards and Baltimore walks a dog. But if it comes down to just Lamar and for some reason Henry isn't able to get on track, I'll take Josh Allen over Lamar as a quarterback. So that's why I'm going with Buffalo.
So we're gonna have to probably hold off all of our hot topics till next.
Yeah, yeah, they're good. They're good.
Yeah, we got good hot topics to talk about, but we've once again went over our 2 hours. So
yeah, and I don't think they're going to change. I think there's still hot topics.
Yeah,
next
there'll
week,
still be
and
hot topics next week. So
we'll have less games to talk about. So we can, if some chips don't fall between now and then, our hot topics they'll simmer till next week.
So you want to give some shout outs, Brett?
Shout out to anybody and everybody that allows us to continue to post our content in your groups. We can't thank you enough. Please continue to share our stuff. Like, subscribe, follow on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Instagram. At some point, guys and girls, we're going to probably get away from posting live on Facebook and just do YouTube. So you guys need to follow us on YouTube. It's free. So follow, join.
Absolutely. So when we get done here, I'm probably going to be calling our sponsor just to make sure everything's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try to work on creating a couple reels this week, and I think I got plenty of ammo from earlier. Maybe add some music to it, just a perfect touch.
Yeah, just a little touch. Just a little touch.
Maybe Sweet Dreams are made of these or something, you know.
Well, so everybody, thank you for joining us. Enjoy a nice weekend of football and enjoy the national championship. And we will be here next Wednesday to bottom line it. And so have a good weekend, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday.
And that's the bottom line.